I deeply appreciate the noble efforts made by Dr. Muhammad Ali Shaikh for organizing this very fruitful seminar depicting the culture, civilization, and history of Sindh. I think it is necessary that our youth who tend to forget the past, the glory of the past, should be reminded what Sindh was and what Sindh is today. I remember distinctly 39 years back in this same city of Karachi, a seminar was organized under the same name, Sindh Through Centuries. And I had the opportunity of participating in that. My noble friend, who is not with us today, Mr. Pyar Ali Allana, who was the Minister for Education and Culture in Sindh in those days, organized this seminar in which scholars, international scholars of fame came to Karachi and they read papers on Sindh, on various aspects of culture, civilization of Sindh. And I'm also grateful to Dr. Hamida Khodo, who's present here, who collected these papers and left it in the shape of a book named Sindh Through Centuries. But I wonder how many of our youngsters have had the chance to go through that book. Similarly, Sayyid Ghulam Mustafa Shah and Sirajul Haq Memon Sahab also compiled some books on the same subject relating to Sindh Through Centuries, which definitely are in the archives today, but I would request the youth of Sindh to please make an effort to read these books, to go through the facts of history, to see, to add to their knowledge what Sindh was and where do we stand today and what is to be done in future. This is our land. This is the land of our ancestors. This is the land where our posterity will live. We have to think about it. We have to lay the right principles for our future dynasties. And I hope that the papers that have been written and read and will be read in the sessions that will follow will be compiled in the form of books, because that is the most constructive thing that we can leave for our posterity to follow. Knowledge is the basic thing. Knowledge gives you intelligence, and knowledge paves the way for development of countries, for the development of provinces, for the development of nations. Sindh is a glorious nation. Early accounts of history speak of two countries, two nations called the Hind and Sindh. Sindh was not just a province. Sindh was a country. Sindh had its own identity. Sindh had its own prominent culture. And Sindh has its own history. I'm glad the prominent scholars of international fame have had the time to study Sindh in depth, and they have contributed for our posterity, they have contributed for us. And we must learn from that. We must enrich our knowledge with the work that has been, the constructive work that has been done by prominent scholars throughout the world. I would just briefly like to mention that Sindhi civilization is the contemporary of ancient civilization of Sumar and Akkad of the land of Mesopotamia. And Sindhis created the most powerful culture in Mohenjo-daro, which was situated on the bank of river Indus, commonly known as Sindhu. And this entire region of Sindhu was watered by the waters of river Indus, which speaks of very rich agricultural land which existed many thousands of years back. Sindh played a very important role in the history of subcontinent. As you are aware, the historians are definitely aware that the Mahabharata that took place, it was a war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, which started with the abduction of a queen, Draupadi, and she was abducted by the king of Sindhu, Sauvira, in which the Sindhi warriors fought very bravely, and there are accounts of their bravery in the early histories of Sindh. Contingents of Sindhi soldiers fought in the armies of Xerxes during the invasion of Greece. Sindhis also fought in the last battle of Persian Empire against Alexander at Arbela. And according to Alexander's accounts, the land of Musikanas in the north of Sindh was the most prosperous region in India. This is what Sindh was. Sindh experienced various changes of fortune. Sindh was first subjugated by the Greeks, then by Chandragupta Maurya, later became part of Ashoka's domain. By the middle of 3rd century AD, Sindh came under the Persian hegemony for the second time in the Sassanid Empire. During the 6th century AD, Sindh became independent once again and remained under Rais and the succeeding Brahmins until its annexation by the Arab Muslim dynasty of Umayyads. Sindh was devoutly Buddhist during the Buddhist phase of Indian history. After a long and glorious period of independence under Sumras and Sammas, it came under the rule of Mughal Shahanshah Akbar. It regained independence in the early 18th century under the Kaloras after the death of Aurangzeb Alamgir. Finally, in view of its strategic importance vis-à-vis the expansion of the Russian Empire south into the Central Asia, the British conquered Sindh in 1843 from the Talpurs. Under the British rule, Sindh was introduced to industrial revolution and modern technique, and this period was revolutionary for the people of Sindh. This rich and varied historical background helped to produce the unique civilization in Sindh. The chief characteristics of Sindh culture were the strong Sufi traditions of mysticism, preaching tolerance. The glorious Sufi poetry goes back to the Mamui fakirs of Sama period. The golden age of Sufi poetry in Sindh is the 17th and the 18th century, with Shah Abdul Latif Bhittai's poetry as the highest point of this period. The Shah Jo Risalo is to Sindhis what Masnavi is to the Persians. Similarly, in architecture, the two streams of influence, the Hindu tradition from Rajasthan in the lower Sindh and the Persian influence throughout Sindh, retains their original flavor stronger than the architecture elsewhere in India. Tombs of Makli Hills near Thatta, which belong to the Sama period, show the distinct Hindu style, while the Shah Jahan Mosque of Thatta is similar to the Friday Mosque in Isfahan. Sindhis have been a peace-loving people, but notable warriors at the same time. Muhammad bin Tughlaq and Khan-e-Khanan are two of the long line of conquerors who were defeated in the deserts and plains of Sindh. By the 18th century, the modern pre-industrial civilization of Sindh was in full swing. Sindh had a richly developed language and a distinct architectural style. The capital city of Hyderabad had replaced the medieval capital of Thatta, and Shikarpur in Upper Sindh was a trading emporium for Central and South Asia. The end of the 18th century saw the Talpurs replacing the Kalodas, but its culture and prosperity remained undiminished throughout their reigns. Sindh is the gateway of Islam in the subcontinent, and true to their tradition of hospitality and religion of peace, Sindhis welcomed hundreds of thousands of refugees from the strife-torn provinces of India and settled them in their midst in the towns and villages of Sindh during post-independence period. Before I conclude, I would just like to mention that brotherhood, peace, harmony, and tolerance are the cornerstones of Sindhi culture. We must strictly adhere to these golden principles in order to counter and curb the existing menace of terrorism spreading in Pakistan. I hope we will all rise to this challenge and defend our land and work together for its prosperity. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.